Today, the question we're going to answer is, what is faith? I think this is an important question because if we don't know what faith is, then how do we know we have it? And faith is a word that is used in our churches. It's used very often in the Bible, and we need to know exactly what it's talking about. And so how can we know what faith is? How do we define faith? I think the best way to define it is to look in Hebrews 11. Hebrews 11 is often called the Hall of Faith. We've got the Hall of Fame, right, where people have done extraordinary things and they get put in the Hall of Fame for baseball and hockey and music. And we've got all these halls of fame. But Hebrews 11 is considered the Hall of Faith. And it spends a lot of its time talking about people in the Bible who have had extraordinary faith. People like Abraham, people like Moses and Noah, people that have just shown extraordinary faith in their life. So, but the first part of Hebrews does define what faith is. In fact, right away in verse 1, the author of Hebrews tells us exactly what faith is. And he says this, "Now faith is confidence in what we hope for, and assurance about what we do not see." So it's confidence in the things that we hope for, but it is assurance in the things that we can't see. So what does that actually mean? Well, I think another way to say it is that faith is confidence in who God is, and it's assurance that He will do what He says He will do. So God is who He is, and He'll do what He says He will do. And when we talk about the confidence that we have, we can take a look and say, we've seen God work before. We've seen Him answer prayers. We've seen Him work in our lives. We've seen how He's moved throughout our life. And when we look at the future, we go, there's things that we don't know. There's things that we can't see yet. But we have assurance that God is going to do something. And He's going to do what He promises to do. In fact, one pastor used the stars in the sky as an illustration. And this just really resonated with me because I love watching the stars in the sky. In fact, one of my favorite things is when I'm speaking at Trout Lake Camp. And the walk from the chapel back to the Shalom house where I stay at night, and I get to look up at the stars, and I see the sky just filled with stars on a clear night. Well, it's dark up there because there's not much light. And there's stars everywhere. But if you've ever gone out in the evening early, you may have looked up at the sky and seen one star. And as you looked up at the sky, you said there's only one star in the sky. But you know from your past that there are millions of stars in the sky. But right now you can only see one. But you know that as it gets darker, you have assurance that more stars will appear. And as the night continues to move and as the sky begins to get dark, more stars start to appear. And that's faith. We know what God has done. We know He is who He says He is. And we know He'll do what He says He'll do. We've seen stars before, so we know they're there. But although we can't see them early on in the evening, we know they're going to show up. We have that assurance. And that's faith. Faith is knowing that God is who He says He is, and He'll do what He says He'll do. Now, one thing faith is not God will give me what I want. And you might have to go through dark times to see God move. But God is there, and He will do what He says He'll do. So as we continue on with our series, just know that your faith is all about assurance and confidence. Confidence in who God is and assurance that he will do what he says he will do.